Hey guys, welcome to another Raid Shadow Legends video. So I've been doing a lot of testing on the clan boss recently, and I've decided to do a series of videos based on the clan boss. There's a lot of videos out there, a lot of them, namely Hell Hades has really helped me, to be honest. He did a great video series on the clan boss, and a bunch of other people. Stu Gaming's one was really good. J Gigs, I think his one was really good too. So loads of good info out there, but I'm going to attempt to do my own, try and add a few little different bits that I think have been missed out. Yeah, see how we get on, because I've been doing a lot of testing with a lot of different teams, and I feel I've got a good knowledge now to kind of people through it. But this video is going to be the absolute basics of the clan boss mechanics, because I feel people focus too much on what sort of team they should build right away and what they should do, and should they have the best poisoner, should they have the best attack down. I think you really need to just understand the clan boss mechanics and what sort of teams apply to the clan boss before you can really do too well on it. So just the total basics in this video are going to be short and sweet. So I've got 6 different difficulties on the clan boss here. You've got easy, normal, hard, brutal, nightmare, and ultra nightmare. The rewards, I should probably say, are fantastic for clan boss, the best in the game really. Once you start getting to ultra nightmare and you get the double chest, you've got a really good chance of getting a couple of sacred shards every week, legendary books, things like that. So definitely the best reward. So it's well worth putting the time and effort into putting a good clan boss team together. So all of them start as void affinity. That's the thing that's really important to note. And once it gets to 50% health, they change to a spirit, force, or magic affinity. Any one of the 3. It's random which one happens. So you can see all of these are still void right now because they haven't been hit. This is still void because it's over 50%. The nightmare in this clan has been hit pretty hard. He's down at 5% health, so he switched to spirit affinity. Now this does change up the fight quite a bit, as I'll go through when we go into the clan boss fight itself, because he does gain extra buffs, debuffs, things like that. So let's quickly jump into a fight, and I'll just jump into Ultra Nightmare, but it doesn't really matter, you can go into any of them. I'm just going to explain the total basic mechanics of the clan boss and what attacks he does and how to build a team around it. So starting off, here is the clan boss. We're in Ultra Nightmare right now, but the skills are the same for every single difficulty. So the first one here is basically, this is his passives. I'll go through quickly because these are important. His first one is he's immune to stuns, freeze, sleep, provoke, block, cooldown, skills, fear, true fear, also any HP exchanging, HP balancing, and cooldown increasing effects. So can't manipulate his turn meter in any way, shape or form. So the way he's going to set out his turns is just going to be that way always. So there's not that much that affects him in terms of the really strong debuffs in the games, because that would be totally broken and it would be way too easy. So then on his A2, his second passive, sorry, not his A2, starting from the 10th turn, the damage inflicted by all his skills increases each turn, basically, and then from the 20th turn it starts going even more. Then by the 50th turn, this was actually only introduced a while ago because there was a problem with unkillable teams just doing too much damage. All attacks will ignore any block damage and unkillable buffs on each target. So after turn 50, you're going to be dying basically. But 50 turns is a lot of turns to do a lot of damage. You can one key Ultra Nightmare with the right team before 50 turns, so that is plenty of time to work with. His last passive is he takes less damage from HP burn and poison debuffs. Also skills that inflict damage based on enemy max HP. So someone like a Coulthart, if this wasn't on, would probably just be super broken, because she would do millions and millions of damage on her Hearthseeker. So they have to be capped. The poison as well, because he's got such high max HP, especially the Ultra Nightmare and Nightmare versions, they would do too much damage. So poison at the moment is capped to 50,000. Incidentally, if you use Frozen Banshee, who is really popular right now, she puts on the poison sensitivity, which can actually get that up to 62,500. There is a bigger version of poison sensitivity coming out as well, but I'm not sure when a champion will have that. So that is the passives. Now, the main mechanics of the clan boss fight you need to know, and this is really the most important thing I think to know in clan boss, is just how his attacks work, because then you can plan your team around it. That's really the secret. So his first attack here is just going to attack all enemies. Now this is on void affinity, so this is before 50% health. So He's going to start off. This is going to be his first attack. Then every 3 turns it will go back to this, and he's just going to attack all enemies. Once the void affinity disappears after 50% health, but 50% and below, sorry, it's going to switch to a random affinity. Okay. Now, when it switches to that random affinity, this is going to turn to attacks all enemies 4 times. So you're gonna it's gonna change it up quite a bit. It also triggers things like if you're running a bulwark or anyone like that, they can trigger debuff extenders on his passive if he's hit. So it's actually quite a good thing for some champions to have more hits on this one. But all in all, it's actually worse because he's going to be doing more damage. Now, once the A1 hits below onto one of the magic, force, or spirit affinities, it also as in an increased attack buff to himself. So you have to be wary of that as well, because with the increased attack buff, he's going to do a lot more damage. So if you can get your damage in when he's in Void, it's a lot easier, because obviously Void, all your champions, if you're landing debuffs and stuff, it's going to be easier to land those debuffs. Once it switches to a different affinity, you know, say like Occult Brawler here for instance, he's Force affinity. Now, he's landing poisons, that's his main form of damage, which is the best form of damage for a clan boss. If that switches to one of the affinities and it switches to the affinity that he's weak against, he's going to be hitting weak hits on them, and he's not going to land his poisons as easy, even if he has the accuracy to do it. So it's really, really important to keep an eye on what affinity the clan boss switches to, and if possible, if you're able to do your damage on the void portion, the first 50% would make life a lot easier. So that's the A1, like I say, attacks all enemies after 50%, attacks all enemies 4 times, and puts in increased attack buff on himself. Now the A2, this attacks all enemies but places a 2.5% poison debuff for 2 turns. So this will be the second round, this is when you'll play this. This also changes once you get to the next stage, so once it goes on to one of the random affinities. I've got a list of this stuff here because I can't remember off my head. Now, when it's a magic affinity, it's decreased accuracy. When it's force affinity, it goes to decrease attack. And when it's spirit affinity, which is probably the hardest one, it actually does decrease speed, which is a bit of a nightmare. So you have to be very wary of that one. It can be totally random, like I say, but up until that point, it's just attacks all enemies, and it's a totally manageable small poison debuff for 2 turns it's on. And then its third attack, this is the most important one really to work around, is he attacks one enemy. This is a big hitting single attack, and it places a stun debuff for 1 turn. This debuff cannot be resisted, so there's no point in putting much resistance on your champions for this fight. Damage is inflicted proportional to enemies' max HP. Realistically, what you want to be doing with this is you want to resist it, but not in the form of resistance. You want block debuffs on buff on your champions. That is the way to get around this, because a stun is going to throw your whole team up. You know, the way you can run a clan boss team is you want to have a set procedure of things happening, especially if you're running like a counter attack team, which is the most popular one. And if he stuns, say, your counter attacker, that's going to let your team down, because that champion's not going to be able to counter attack the next time. It's going to throw your team's speed off. Or if any of your poisoner, that's going to do less damage. Your healer, he's not going to heal that time. Then one of your champions might die. Basically, getting stunned is not good. So when building a clan boss team, you want to think about these 3 attacks, and you want to time your champions to do abilities when you want them to do them. Now, manual in clan boss is a lot better than auto in it, but everyone wants to build a really good auto team because, you know, it's so much easier. You just hit the button, boom, there's your chest for the day. But I would say to everyone when you're starting out on clan boss, just manual through it all. It takes a little bit of time, but it's not crazy. You're only playing like 10 minutes, and at the end of the day, most games you have to manual. This is a pretty unheard of game that you just sit, click a button, and it doesn't do anything. So I would manual your teams as much as possible to begin with, just to get that experience, get an idea of how the mechanics work, and then move on to really fine tuning a speed team and counter attack team and whatever you're going to do, just to make sure you can get a really good auto run. But even on a lot of auto runs, you need to kind of manual it for a couple of turns just to get the setup going, then let it run its course. So really that's how it goes. Is A3 as well. There is a change in this one as well when it gets to magic force or spirit affinity. It normally just cannot be resisted, but it also ignores all defense once he goes below 50% HP. So again, the clan boss is a lot more difficult when he reaches below 50% HP, so really important to note that. Now here's a list of the clan boss speeds. So these clan boss speeds are pretty important because this is going to be kind of what you're going to base your team on. So as you can see, Ultra Nightmare, you're going to be running, it's going to be 190 speed, so as long as you're 191 and above, you're always going to go before the clan boss on the first turn. And it goes all the way down to 90. I think this is right. This is kind of what I've gathered from information, but 90 on easy, 110 on normal, 130 on hard, brutal's 150, and nightmare's 170. Most people like myself, anyone kind of more end game, you're going to be concentrating on Ultra Nightmare and Nightmare the most, so that's where you're going. So that's going to lead me into this next bit of information, which is basically if you are going to be speed tuning a counter-attack team, which is the most popular build. You've only got 3 counter-attack champions in the game, which is Valkyrie, Martyr, and Skullcrusher, but if you're doing that, you want your speeds to be in these ranges to make sure you always have that counter-attack up when the clan boss comes around and does damage. So between 191 and 209 speed is the Ultra Nightmare sort of window of speeds that you need, and if your champions are within that, they're all going to go. Then the last person to play is your counter attacker, then the clan boss hits the counter attack, then you counter attack, then the next turn, because it's a 2-turn, you get the counter attack again, then on the 3rd turn it's a single hit, so it doesn't matter, and then boom, you start all over again. It's on a 3-turn cooldown for the counter attack. So that is how you keep the counter attack up through all the AoEs throughout the fight, being speed tuned. And again, all these speeds below apply for all the below ones, so it's 171 to 189 for Nightmare, and you can see them all listed below here. The other thing that's really important for clan boss is accuracy, because your debuffs are going to be huge depending on the type of team you play. Like say if you're just playing a traditional team, you're going to want things like attack down, defense down and weaken, poisons, shields, all this kind of stuff, but most of them are debuffs. They're really important, so you have to be able to hit the debuffs to make your team work. So I would say accuracy is the most important attribute really when you're starting out. When you get to sort of end game and you've got the Great Hall all at 10 for every accuracy, you don't need to worry about it too much because you're generally going to have enough. But here's a list of all the accuracies you need. I would recommend 240 plus for Ultra Nightmare just to guarantee those hits, 180 plus for Nightmare, and you can see them all listed below. So that is pretty much what we need. So yeah, this is pretty much all the basics that I could think of for the clan boss mechanics. Like I say, I'm not going into the teams. There's so many different variations. There's unkillables, there's counterattacks, there's speed tuning, all this kind of stuff. But I'm going to do separate videos on all of this. But this is just the absolute utmost basics of the clan boss mechanics and how it works and how you're supposed to fight it. And if you do this, then you're gonna get a better idea of how the mechanics work, when to kind of place certain champions. So say if you've got a block debuffs, like I've got Mausoleum Mage here, and it's on a 1-turn cooldown. If you're going to manual it, you want to go to, sorry, not 1-turn cooldown, it's on a 3-turn cooldown, but it only lasts for 1 turn, the block debuffs. So you wait until the 3rd turn and you play it just before the stun hits, and then the stun's not going to hit. But then even if you hit auto after that, because it's on a 3-turn cooldown, it's always going to come up in time for the next stun, so you're going to be constantly protected from that stun. So really know how the attacks work, and that is the best way of doing this. So anyway guys, I hope you really enjoyed the video. If it really helped you improve your clan boss team, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. That helps me a lot, and I appreciate it guys. Take it easy.